In the icy mountains of the Himalayas, where silence weighs and cold defies life, arises the mystery of the Yeti. Ancient accounts speak of a tall, hairy creature that watches from the shadows travelers. Huge footprints, distant cries and brief encounters crossed centuries, arousing fear and fascination. Between legend and science, the Yeti has become the living symbol of the unknown hidden in the highest altitudes on Earth, which still intrigues modern researchers. No final answers. The local people of the Himalayas do not treat the Yeti as a mere myth. For the Sherpas, he is an ancestral being linked to the forces of the mountain, respected and feared. Stories passed down through generations describe quick encounters, quiet looks, and clear warnings for those who move beyond sacred boundaries. In these cultures, the Yeti is not hunted because it represents balance, punishment, and natural protection of the territory. At the beginning of the 20th century, Western expeditions took the Yeti to the world stage. British mountaineers reported huge footprints in the snow, with humanoid shape and spacing impossible for an ordinary man. Photographs emerged, albeit blurred, feeding newspapers and scientific debates. The creature has earned the nickname of Abominable Snowman, arousing intense global curiosity. Scientists tried to explain the phenomenon as misinterpretation. Himalayan bears, seen from afar, could look like bipedal creatures. Footprints deformed by the thaw would confuse weary observers. However, some marks exhibited unusual anatomical details, such as well-defined fingers and strange proportions. These evidences kept alive the doubt about the existence of something not yet catalogued. From the 50s, physical samples began to emerge. Supposed by the Yeti were analyzed in laboratories around the world. Some tests indicated common animal origin, others presented inconclusive results. No proof was considered definitive. Each rejected analysis fed even bolder theories, keeping the mystery active among skeptics and fervent defenders. With the advance of genetics, new DNA analyses rekindled the debate. Recent studies have pointed to similarities with extinct or unknown bear species. Even so, the absence of a complete body prevents final conclusions. The Yeti stands between science and folklore, challenging researchers and remembering that not all of Earth's secrets have been revealed. Reports of modern sightings continue to arise even with satellites and drones. Experienced climbers claim to have seen large silhouettes crossing steep slopes at impressive speed. Some describe a strong smell in the air before the meeting, followed by absolute silence. These recent testimonies reinforce the idea that the phenomenon does not belong only to the past or to the collective imagination. Tibetan monasteries hold objects attributed to the Yeti, such as supposed skulls and ancient bones. For decades, these artifacts were displayed as sacred evidence, far from scientific reach. When some reached the laboratories, analyses revealed common animal origins, yet the local faith remains unshaken, for to them the Yeti is more spiritual than physical. Bolder theories suggest that the Yeti could be a surviving hominid, adapted to extreme cold and isolated for millennia. This hypothesis would explain their intelligence, stealth, and rarity of encounters. However, the absence of recent fossils weakens this idea. Even so, the concept fascinates by challenging the traditional view of human evolution. Other researchers argue that the Yeti is a result of a combination of psychological and environmental factors. High altitude, extreme fatigue, and fear can distort human perception. Shadows take shape, sounds enlarge, and the brain creates familiar patterns. Still, this explanation fails to attempt to justify consistent accounts from different cultures and distant times. The popular media has transformed the Yeti into a global cultural figure. Films, books, and documentaries reinforced his image as a mysterious and lonely creature. This exposure helped keep the interest alive, but also distorted real facts. between exaggeration and entertainment, separating fiction from evidence has become increasingly difficult, further deepening the enigma of the Himalayas. Some explorers claim that the Yeti consciously avoids human contact. Deviated trails, footprints that disappear suddenly, and camps ignored suggest strategic behavior. This apparent intelligence reinforces theories that the creature observes from a distance, choosing when and where to reveal itself. If it exists, the Yeti may have survived just by mastering the art of extreme isolation. The harsh climate of the Himalayas contributes to the disappearance of physical evidence. Frozen bodies deteriorate slowly, but avalanches and deep cracks swallow everything. Even large animals rarely leave lasting traces. This creates a perfect setting for a rare species to remain hidden. The mountain not only hides secrets, it erases them with relentless time. Independent research indicates that several descriptions of the Yeti differ between regions. Some speak of an aggressive creature, others of a peaceful and curious being. This variation raises doubts about unique identity. There may be more than one explanation behind the myth, mixing real animals, spiritual beliefs, and extreme human experiences into a single powerful symbol. Modern science faces ethical and logistical limits to investigate the Himalayas. Sacred areas do not allow excavations, and human risk is high. Investments are scarce for research without guarantees. Thus, the Yeti remains out of reach of in-depth studies. The mystery persists not only for lack of evidence, but for barriers that prevent them to seek. Even without confirmation, the Yeti plays an important role in the human imagination. He represents the unknown that resists technological advancement. In a mapped and monitored world, its legend reminds us that there are still untouched borders. The Yeti is not just a creature, but a silent warning that the Earth holds secrets beyond human control. Some reports describe the Yeti emitting low sounds, similar to prolonged roars or grunts. These sounds were recorded by expeditions, but never accurately identified. Experts differ between vocalizations of large mammals or something unknown. The echo in the mountains distorts frequencies, making analysis difficult. Still, the records feed disturbing suspicions. Maps of sightings reveal curious patterns. Many reports arise near old animal migration routes and unexplored areas. This suggests that the Yeti, if it exists, deeply dominates the territory. The choice of remote locations would not be random, but strategic. The creature would seem to know the mountain better than any modern human. Some biologists raise the hypothesis of systematic error in the identification of standing bears. Under certain conditions, these animals can walk on two legs and leave strange footprints. However, witnesses insist on clear differences in height, movement, and behavior. This disagreement keeps the debate alive because no simple explanation can cover all cases. Reports of direct encounters often involve intense feelings of fear and paralysis. People describe deep eyes, imposing posture, and an overwhelming presence. Even without attack, the psychological impact remains for years. Psychologists analyze these cases as answers to the extreme unknown. Still, the similarity between testimonies generates persistent scientific discomfort. With the advancement of thermal technologies, new searches have been conducted. Some images show large shapes moving rapidly in icy areas. However, the limited resolution prevents conclusive identification. Critics point to technical failures, while defenders see promising indications. Each new attempt brings the truth closer, but also reinforces how much it still escapes. Some researchers suggest that the Yeti may represent a known species not yet officially classified. The history of science shows that large animals were discovered late. The extreme isolation of the Himalayas favors this possibility. As long as forests and mountains remain unexplored, new species may exist far from formal human records. Reports of children raised in the mountain villages show familiarity with the Yeti from an early age. They learn to recognize signs, sounds, and trails that would indicate their presence. For these communities, the Yeti is not a spectacle, but part of the environment. This cultural coexistence strengthens belief and makes it difficult to separate tradition, respect, and objective reality. Conspiracy theories claim that governments hide evidence of the existence of the Yeti to avoid social impact. Although they lack solid evidence, these ideas gain strength in the face of scientific silence. The absence of clear answers feeds suspicions. When science does not conclude, the collective imaginary fills the voids with persistent alternative narratives. The Yeti also appears as a spiritual symbol in ancient rituals. It represents balance between man and nature, reminding limits that should not be exceeded. Even if it does not exist physically, its symbolic role has shaped behaviors and traditions. The legend influenced generations, maintaining respect for the mountains and the invisible force of the environment. Modern expeditions face a constant dilemma between curiosity and preservation. Searching for the Yeti can mean disrupting fragile ecosystems. Many argue that certain mysteries should remain untouched. Perhaps the true importance of the Yeti is not in being found, but in remembering that not everything needs to be revealed to have meaning. Some scholars believe that the Yeti is the result of multiple phenomena gathered in a single legendary figure. Isolated sightings, rare animals, and extreme experiences would have added up over time. So the myth grew and consolidated. Even so, the strength of this collective narrative raises the question as to why it persists so alive. Himalayan tourism also influences the mystery. Guides tell stories to alert visitors about real dangers of the mountains. The Yeti, in this context, functions as a symbolic warning. However, not all reports are based on commercial interests. Many come from people without any gain, reinforcing the complexity of the phenomenon. Statistical analyses show that reports of the Yeti increase after extreme weather events. Storms, avalanches, and snowfalls create psychological conditions conducive to fear. The mind seeks explanations for chaos. Still, not all encounters occur in these circumstances, leaving gaps difficult to fill with emotional factors alone. Comparisons between the Yeti and other legendary creatures, such as Bigfoot, reveal intriguing similarities. Both arise in isolated regions and have similar descriptions. Some advocate a common origin. Others see universal patterns of the human mind. This connection widens the debate, turning the Yeti into part of a larger global mystery. Even with centuries of reports, no final proof emerged. This makes the Yeti one of the greatest enigmas of cryptozoology. His absence of confirmation does not weaken him, but strengthens him as a symbol. The mystery survives because it touches something deep in the human being. The desire to believe that the unknown still walks free. Some anthropologists claim that the Yeti acts as a link between humans and the wild. He represents what has been left behind by civilization. In regions where nature dominates, this figure gains symbolic strength. Fear and respect mix, creating an entity that expresses natural limits that man insists on challenging. Historical records show that reports similar to the Yeti existed long before Western influence. Ancient Tibetan texts describe mountain beings with unusual strength and reserved behavior. These descriptions predate tourism and the media. This weakens the idea of modern invention and reinforces the antiquity of the phenomenon narrated. The absence of direct attacks attributed to the Yeti draws attention. Unlike known predators, it seems to avoid confrontation. This characteristic suggests intelligence or specific territorial behavior. For some researchers, this indicates a highly adapted animal. For others, It reinforces the mythical aspect in which the creature observes but rarely interferes. Environmental sound studies in the Himalayas have captured noises that do not correspond to catalogued species. Although inconclusive, these records raise intriguing hypotheses. The difficulty lies in isolating sound sources in extreme environments. Even so, each recording adds a layer to the mystery, keeping the scientific debate in constant motion. For many locals, proving the existence of the Yeti is not a priority. They live with the idea without needing external validation. The creature is part of the daily symbolic and spiritual. This stance contrasts with the scientific obsession for evidence, showing that the mystery can exist fully even without official confirmation. The technological advance promises answers, but also raises new questions. Drones, sensors, and satellite imagery cover larger areas, but the Himalayas remain unpredictable. Extreme conditions limit equipment and people. Each failure reinforces the feeling that the Yeti is hiding not by chance, but because the environment conspires in favor of mystery. For some researchers, the Yeti may never be found because it does not exist as a physical being. He lives on the border between fear, respect, and imagination. Yet his symbolic force has shaped human behavior for centuries. Even without evidence, its presence influences decisions, stories, and beliefs, showing that the impact of the invisible can be real. The quest for the Yeti reveals more about the human being than about the creature. It exposes our need to explore, explain, and master the unknown. Each expedition carries hope and frustration. In the end, the true mystery may not be what walks in the mountains, but what moves our unceasing curiosity. The Himalayan Yeti remains unconfirmed but never forgotten. Between flawed evidence and conflicting theories, it resists time. His legacy crosses cultures, science, and imagination. As long as there are unexplored mountains and unanswered questions, the Yeti will continue to exist, not only in the snow, but in the human mind.